Oh, la vie me joue des tours, essaie de faire la peau. Amour est réveillé, caché sous mon chapeau.
Hi everyone, it's Katelan, La Gitana from London Conjure, and Sister Enable. She is over in the UK taking care of a really big negotiation with one of our cases. So there will be video from her coming up soon, but right now we just have to get a few things taken care of. So I will be taking care of the video for now. So today we are discussing a few different things. We're discussing some of the spirits and deities that we work with. So Santisima Muerte comes up, Marie Laveau comes up. We're also going to be talking a little bit about troubled spirits. So I am taking you over to Roosevelt Island, which used to be called Blackwell Island, and it is the site of the former Blackwell Island Mental Asylum. There was a writer named Nellie Bly, which I will explain later, that did 10 days in a mental institute, and she documented her time there. And I'll add links at the end of the video so you can look this stuff up yourself. But I will take you on a little tour over there.
Straight downtown as Nellie Brown, lying about my name, lodged in a room on 2nd Avenue. I played insane.
The facility was created in 1839 by Alexander Jackson Davis, and he was one of the most influential architects of that time. And so it was based on the panoptic theory. And it had the Octagon, and then, like a hospital would, it had two wings, L-shaped wings from either side. And also, early in the 19th century, it was not the greatest time to be labeled a lunatic. And most of these people that were sent to the asylum were not lunatics at all. It was almost all women, and a lot of them were immigrants that couldn't speak English. A lot of them were poor. So you had this influx of people that couldn't speak English, that they didn't really know what to do in society, and people who couldn't kind of afford everyday life, and so they just put them on the island. Also at the time, what they didn't realize is that with these intentions to kind of like make this asylum, that there would be so much overcrowding. So you had these small spaces, a lot of people, not enough staff, and the treatment of these patients was not good. At the time, there was a writer, and she went under the name of Nellie Bly, even though her real name was E. Jane Cochran. And she was asked by The World, that was a newspaper at the time, to go undercover and do a story on the asylum and how patients were treated, because there was rumors coming back. And so she did that. And what she did is, for her time going into the institute, she would make faces in the mirror and do all of these things that she would sort of like deem quote-unquote crazy behavior. And she did this for a little while, and she started doing it in public until people started taking notice. And so when they were going to admit her, she just kind of, did these things, and they admitted her in. And once she was in the hospital, she was like, hey, I'm going to act normal now. Which apparently led the doctors to believe that she was absolutely insane. And so they absolutely admitted her, had her go in there. And so she spent 10 days in a mental institute and documented all of it, down to what kind of food the patients got, which the nurses would have fresh fruits and vegetables and, quite wonderful food. And the inmate, like I say inmates because it was almost like a prison, but the patients there would get bland fish or half-rotted food. So there wasn't that balance, and the patients would be led past the kitchen so they could see all the fresh food that the nurses were getting and know that they weren't getting the same. Also at the time, there were really insane forms of trying to get someone well. So they would put them in freezing cold water in baths for hours on end. They would have these beds that were just overcrowded. And Nellie also talked about how there were these benches there, and they would put the patients on the benches and have them sit there without speaking from morning until evening. And she said after even a week of this, a few days of this, anyone would start to go insane. So her report of the conditions were completely shocking. From the moment that she entered it, she said that she made no attempt to keep up the role of insanity. And the more that she acted like herself, and I know that I'm repeating this, but it was the more that people thought she was insane, which is kind of a scary thought. Also, one of the things that she reported on was not only the rotted food, but also the horrible diseased conditions that were in the hospital. When Nellie's article went to print, people were so outraged by the horrible conditions that she experienced that they actually closed it down. So by 1893, the asylum was completely closed down after the hospital had been shut down, and it became the Metropolitan Hospital with more traditional medical care. So this actually brings us to troubled spirits. And Sister Enable and I have worked with a few of them. We had a case once where there was a troubled spirit that was actually working with a woman that had a number of different spirits working with her. And so what we did is we actually got the spirit to work with us by giving it certain offerings and showing it that, you know, we could actually take care of it. When you do that, when you show some sort of offering, something to show them that you actually remember them or care about them, this happens a lot with lost souls. If you can form a sort of relationship with them, they will actually work with you on a number of different workings. So it's really important to kind of take care of where that spirit comes from, or, you know, in the case of Blackwell Island, which has a lot of different energies because it has such a huge history. At one point, that island had a prison. There was many criminals there as well. So when you have that kind of history with a place or a spirit, the best thing to do is kind of work with the land or work with the spirit and what seems to be where they came from, what makes them kind of comfortable. We've worked with this many times. A lot of times we'll give them offerings of whiskey, or another time, and especially with Blackwell Island, I'll put coins in the trees, or crystals in the trees, things like that, sort of to give the spirits a little offering to show that they are appreciated or remembered. So that is a really important part of working in root work, working in magic, working with spirits, and working for people, is to understand what spirits are around, what the energy is of the land, and putting those together to create a solution. So in some places it says that she was born in the 1790s and others in the 1800s, but on the Voodoo Museum's website in New Orleans, and it has it stated as September 10th, 1801. And she was actually the natural daughter of 2 free persons of color. And also with that, there's a few statements that say that her father was white and he was a rich plantation owner. There's been new evidence that came into play that both of her parents were free persons of color. And she was also Creole. She also had a really interesting relationship with Père Antoine. He was a very important figure in the Catholic Church, and also to helping out a lot of people that were poor and sick. And she had a really great and wonderful relationship with him. Oftentimes she was allowed to do her workings within the church, which was basically not happening if you were a voodoo practitioner. But they had a really wonderful relationship together, and they worked together to help many people. The only indication of any sort of occupation that she had was actually of a liquor importer in 1832. But many say that she was a hairdresser, and that's how she made so many connections. And others say that she was very politically active, as well as her father being associated with a lot of politicians as well. She did live in this cottage. It was on St. Anne Street. She lived there almost for most of her life, and that was actually given to her by her maternal grandmother, and her name was Catherine Henry. Henry was a former slave who managed to purchase her own freedom. How she came about voodoo, most people think that it was probably passed down throughout the family, although there have been some stories about her being associated with Dr. John. And folklore tells us that she was incredibly beautiful, incredibly smart, and that she got rich selling gris-gris and other things that and also that she was incredibly politically active, which I've said before, and that police and world leaders would, come to her and ask her for her advice. There's also folklore or rumor that she ran a house of prostitution. There's so many things that saying that she could fix court cases, and there's even one case where it's said that there was a very rich official, and his son was accused of rape. And so he went to Marie Laveau, and she took on his case, and she did divination on it, and she decided to help him out. What he would give her in return for that is he would give her a white house. Now, I'm not sure if this actually happened or not, but she decided to take on the case. And she went into the Catholic Church, and she sat up in front of the altar, and she put hot peppers into her mouth, and she prayed over and over again while the hot peppers burned inside of her mouth. And when you do that, it is said that God and the spirits around take great pity on large amounts of suffering. And so she did that, and she also placed the peppers underneath the judge's chair. So when the verdict came in, the man's son got off, and apparently she got a white house out of it. The other stories that go around about her are that she was very opposed to public hanging. And there was 2 men that were accused of beating and murdering a slave at the time. And Marie took on that case as well. And she showed up at the execution, and on that day, supposedly, a storm rolled in, and as the men were about to hang, the ropes broke, and rains poured down, and Marie was there, and everyone witnessed her there, and they were so shocked and so scared. And so the men went up to hang again, and Marie spent a lot of time with them in the prison. Eventually they were hung, but that was the last case of public hanging in New Orleans. She was actually so well known that when she was buried, and that's in St. Louis Cemetery number 1, she actually got written up in the New York Times, and they gave her a huge obituary. So you know that she had great amounts of power and influence.
You better come on in my kitchen. It's gonna be rain outdoors. Woman I love stole my best friend. Some joker got.
So this bit on Santisima Muerte is from Sister Enable, and she uses Santa Muerte in her red aspect. And she's a Mexican folk saint from the Aztec Mayan pantheon. And they can teach us a lot when we're ready to listen. In her red aspect, she's actually about love and emotions, but also, as Sister Enable discovered, about transformation, which is a really important key in using Santa Muerte, because a lot of people get afraid of her, thinking that she will bring death, or that, you know, she's going to take away something that you don't want taken away. And usually in that aspect, it means that you're holding on to something that's negative or something that you need to let go of. She's fast-working, direct energy. She's ultimately karma. Working with her, Sister Enable had to face a lot of aspects of herself, which Santisima Muerte does. She will make you look directly in your own face and really confront certain sides of yourself. These aspects are usually things that you initially think you don't have issues with and then realize several months later that you actually do. And she also has you change certain aspects of your life and your outlook on your life. In her red aspect, Santisima Muerte is an utter realist and all about the fire element. It can burn, it can consume, it's an incredible cleanser. Sometimes in doing so, it becomes a total cleanse of out with the old and in with the new. She breaks illusions, really taking care of the fantasy aspect of yourself and your life and bringing in the reality of it. Initially, this can appear to show itself in hardships, would appear to be like a series of negative occurrences, and appeared is the case in this. Retrospectively, Sister Enable has found that due to what she had been neglecting to change within herself, which she did not even see at the time was even a problem or needing to be changed, Santisima Muerte actually transformed her and made her look at certain aspects of her life, certain aspects of her personality, and certain things that she was looking at as really important or non-important, and bringing them to light. So, in essence, Santisima Muerte actually brings everything into a really huge dose of reality. She can also be used as a protection, which a lot of people don't really see because they just see the black aspect as the protection. But because the red aspect does work with matters of the heart, a lot of things that are triggered are matters of the heart. And so she will protect you in those instances. So thank you so much for tuning in, and next week we will be traveling to Massachusetts, and I will show you a few things over there, and we will be talking about, again, working with spirits, how to work with your ancestors and pay reverence to them. So I'll be showing you the little chapel at my parents' house, and I'll be showing you a little bit of what I do over there and a little bit of the ritual work and how my own ancestors help prepare with cleansings. So we'll discuss a little bit of cleansings and how to do them and how to work with your own ancestral background in those cleansings. So I'll see you next week.